Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Movie Critic Rob here with the Movie Channel, and today we are going to be talking about the new Jon Favreau film, The Jungle Book, which is obviously a remake of The Jungle Book, and we've had a ton of remakes and a ton of versions of The Jungle Book, but the most notable is the Disney animated version that was released, I believe, in the 70s. I actually just watched it again after watching this year's Jungle Book in theaters. I found it on YouTube, and I was able to watch it again just because I didn't remember it, and I wanted to kind of give y'all a perspective from a source material point of view. I watched half of it, so I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did get a good sense of what it was. I do remember watching the original animated Jungle Book that Disney put out. But I didn't remember it almost at all. The only thing I remember, I think, was the scene of Ka in the last time I watched it, whenever that was. And so I wanted to, go back and look at the source material. But anyway, so this movie, the now 2016 version of Jungle Book, directed by Jon Favreau. Right before watching this movie yesterday, or I watched the movie this morning, but yesterday I was informed via, I think it was a movie review by Jeremy Johns, that the movie itself, besides the character of Mowgli, who was played by Neil Setti, was completely CGI. And I was thinking to myself, oh my word, because it looked real. All the trailers made it look real, and I'm thinking that's all CGI. I mean, I knew the animals were CGI, because they have to be. But even then, when I was watching the movie, I was like, these things look real. How do these things look real? I honestly, one of the things I walked out of this movie thinking to myself was, and next up, if you have this kind of storytelling and this kind of quality, the next movie that Disney needs to remake as live action is The Lion King. I kid you not. Because if The Lion King got this kind of treatment, everybody would be happy. Let's just put it out there and just, yeah. If The Lion King got this treatment and just keep the score the way that it was in 1994, go for it, man. Go for it, because that was awesome. I was able to watch it in IMAX in the morning. It was actually like $10, and I had a gift card, so I watched it for 50 cents. and I was able to watch it in the IMAX because I really wanted to see this in IMAX. I heard that it was really immersive. I think John Campea had reviewed this film, and he said, if you have a chance to see this movie, go see it in IMAX because this movie is immersive. And I gotta say, I was into it, man. I was into the jungle, and the whole atmosphere was just inviting and enticing from the get-go. This is one of those movies, and the only movie that did this for me, where it's kind of one of those, oh, you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy, was Lion King, where, right from the beginning of the movie, you are completely immersed into into what's going on. And it's an animated movie. So this is one of those movies where right at the beginning, you're like, okay, we're in the jungle. Forget all this. We're not in Kansas anymore. We are in the jungle. And it was fantastic. One thing I will comment over and over again in this review is the cinematography and the effects, because both were excellent the whole time. I mean, there was not a moment that I was taken out of the jungle while watching this movie. The whole time, I am completely immersed in the IMAX and in the 3D, and the 3D was fantastic, by the way. Whoo! And I was into it. I was just in it, and just go for it. They had a rain scene, which for me, I love rain. I love when it rains just because I like the way it feels in the atmospherics. And I love that they were able to replicate that, because I'm sitting there, I'm going like, I don't want to go to sleep because the movie's so good, but this is making me want to go to sleep because it looks so good. But yeah, the atmospherics of this movie, if they would have done this in like a 4D thing where they would have like done the atmospherics in the theater, it would have been amazing. The characters. All right, so I want to talk about the characters, and I'm not going to give anything away. This is a non-spoiler review, but I do want to give a little blurb about each character. And I think, if you've seen any of the other Jungle Books, you kind of know about the characters. But the little character moments, I'm not going to give away. Because what this movie does, and I'm going to mention this really quick before diving into the characters. What this movie does is it takes specifically the animated version, because there's some lines that are in the Jon Favreau movie that were straight out of the animated version, like replicas, which was awesome. But what they do is they take that source material, not my clothes that is over there, but the source material. I have a blanket that's just sitting there. They take the source material and they amplify it, especially Shere Khan. Shere Khan is just frightening, but we're going to get to that in a second. So first I'm going to talk about the character of Mowgli, who is the only actual person, live person, warm body on the set, besides the people behind the camera. And this kid, I have to say, he does a good job for never having acted in his life, and this being his first movie, and also to be thrown into the wolves that is acting to nothing, because he really did act to absolutely nothing. He does a marvelous job. There are some moments, that he's kind of like, he's giving you that twitchy eye thing where he doesn't know where to look. But to his credit, come on, there are some adult actors that I've seen that can't act to a green screen. And I'm looking at all the people in the Star Wars films. That's not to say, and I think this is the difference. A good director. And I'm sorry, I'm not knocking George Lucas here, but I think that we all can agree he dropped the ball in the prequels. But this is a movie that shows you, because he's alone. He had no other person there. And he's doing a fantastic job, which kind of makes me want Jon Favreau to direct a Star Wars film. Chris Stuckman said this too, and I'm like, yes, Jon Favreau for Star Wars. That's what I'm talking about. But he did a marvelous job. Now to the voice actors. Ben Kingsley as Bagheera. It was funny because I went back, like I said, to the 1960 something or 70 something version, the animated version of the Jungle Book, and I saw it again. And I love the voice actor that they choose. My favorite voice actor in that movie is Baloo's, because it's the same guy that does the voice for Thomas O'Malley in the Aristocats, which I love that movie, and I think it's completely undervalued. And he also plays Little John in Robin Hood for Disney. But after I saw Ben Kingsley in this, and I'm like, oh, they cast Bagheera perfectly, especially when I heard him in the trailers. It's like, oh, he's, because he's got that warm sensibility to his voice, and he's got this "I'm a wise leader," like English kind of accent, that is just fantastic. But he did a really good job. He was kind of, one of the emotional cores of this film. The other one being Baloo, which I'm going to talk about next, which was voiced by none other than the illustrious Bill Murray. And this is a return to form for Murray, because ever since the days of Osmosis Jones, he's kind of not been there. I feel he's just kind of been like, okay, all right, another role, let's just go into it. But honestly, this was one where it had heart, and Baloo's scenes are some of the best scenes, emotionally speaking, in this movie. Just because of what he's able to do. And the funny thing is that the voice, he does it in such a way that I did not think, if you don't know that it's, let me put it this way, if you don't know that it's Bill Murray in the role, you'll never tell. That's how good it is. And I like that because it never takes you out of the storytelling. And say, oh, look, that's Bill Murray. Because, a lot of people do that, and it kind of, if it's too prominent, it takes you out of the storytelling. But that brings me to the next character, who is as prominent as could be, but it does not take away from the storytelling either. and that is Christopher Walken as King Louis. Yeah, they actually went for it, and they got Christopher Walken to be in a in a voice acting movie, and he was just tremendous. I love his voice. He's like, oh, I fudded. Yeah. And I mean, oh gosh, it was. He even sang in this movie, man. He sang "I Want to Be Like You" in this movie. Come on. The same with Bill Murray. He sang, oh gosh, um, Bare Necessities. Oh, in the world, I lost my mind there. Bare Necessities, and both of the songs, I'm like, Whedon, Jon Favreau. God, I wanted to say Joss Whedon for some reason. Jon Favreau, you are the boss, man. With Chef, Iron Man 1, and now Jungle Book. Applause to you, good sir. Applause to you. You are one of my favorite filmmakers out there, and you have not made that much, so that goes to show you how awesome you are. Okay, so we talked about King Louis, we talked about Bagheera, we talked about Baloo, and now I want to talk about next. It's one other character I want to talk about. Actually, I'm going to touch on the other character first, and then I'm going to go back and switch what I had in mind. But the next one I want to talk about is Raksha by Lupita Nyong'o. And that's the only one that there was the other wolf, the wolf leader, and he did a good job. But I don't know him that well, so it was kind of he wasn't in the movie too long. Same with Raksha, but Raksha left about the biggest impression. I guess the best thing to say about the wolf leader is that he was regal. I really liked the way they did his voice acting. But Lupita Nyong'o was one of those where, and last time we saw her mainstream was playing Maz Kanata, and this role was so much better than Maz Kanata because it's more emotional, and she's really allowed to sink into that and play off the motherly emotional, and she really does. She has probably the most emotional scene in the entire movie with Mowgli, and it was one of those where it's like, oh my gosh, she's a good actress. It's like, I never doubted that she was. It was just one of those where the voice acting really excels, and I think it may be due in part to Maz Kanata because now she has experience in voice acting, which I don't think she'd ever done prior to Maz Kanata. And in that, translating to CGI world kind of movie. And it really shows here her acting range and her versatility. So kudos to her. So now we're going to talk about the antagonist of this movie, and arguably one of the best casting choices ever made, which is Idris Elba as Shere Khan. This guy, every time Shere Khan is on the screen, my nails were embedded into the seats, and I was just completely enraptured by this tiger. Not to mention that it looks real. It looks like this thing has been through, like, the World War II of animals. But this thing is just a force of nature. Like, really, it's like he is unstoppable, and the things he does in this movie, which that's one thing that this movie got better than the other one because the other one's it's an animated film. This one's more of a modern retelling, and so you got to make it a little edgier. But here's the problem: when edge is done well and it's for the right characters, it works. And Shere Khan was one of those where it was like, okay, you have made me scared. You have honestly, I sat in the theater and there was a couple of scenes with Shere Khan where I'm honestly sitting there like, I'm afraid of this tiger. Take this tiger away from the camera. Please. This is not good. I don't like this. And it's like every time this thing comes on the screen, you're like, he's gonna do something despicable. And there's this one part where he's talking to these wolf pups, and I'm not gonna tell you if and what happens, or if anything happens, or what happens. But I'm sitting there going, because he'd already done some mean things already by this point in the movie, and I'm just like, oh no, he's gonna eat him. He's gonna eat him. He's gonna eat him. No, no. Um, but but excellent, excellent voice acting. I mean, oh my word, haunting and just visceral. The action in this movie is absolutely visceral and it's just amazing. The hits, you feel those hits of just everything that goes on in the movie, where you get like these hard hits of things against one another, like two animals fighting or something. The oh my, you feel it. It was really engaging, and it did not let up the entire movie. The one detractor, and it's really not a detractor. It was just one of those where they kind of couldn't fit it into the movie right, and so they just kind of threw it in this one place. It actually made sense, but I guess it would have liked better integration. Was Ka's scene. Now, the other actor besides Baloo in the original animated film that I know is Ka, because Ka, and it's funny, both of these actors have Aristocats in their repertoire. I'm talking about the animated version. And this one played Roquefort, the little mouse, in the Aristocats, which I love. And he also played Winnie the Pooh, which was kind of funny because I'm sitting there going, that's Winnie the Pooh, and he's evil. I like it. But, you know, they made him a girl, obviously, with Scarlett Johansson playing the character. And honestly, Scarlett Johansson has one of the most mesmerizing voices in cinema, to where she could, like, every time she's talking in a low tone, you're like, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. So they could not have picked a better person to play Ka, because, you know, the whole thing about Ka is the hypnotic quality. The way they do the eyes, because, you know, in the original or in the animated version, they have, you know, the eye circles, and they kind of do it here, but it's really done well. Where I was like, oh yes, nice. The best way I can sum up this movie is it really pays homage to it's really an homage to the original Disney animated film of the same name. There are a lot of scenes that are just ripped out of that movie, and the lines ripped out of that movie. But also there's a lot of expansion on it, but expansion in the way of that it makes sense and is not just a cash grab saying, okay, we just wanted to make some extra dollars because, you know, Disney doesn't have enough money. And just made this film. No, this is a movie that has a lot of quality in it and was made in a cautious and in a intentional way. Jon Favreau does an amazing job here. And honestly, if you had told me that this movie, if you had not told me that this movie was all CGI, I would have thought, you know, other than the animals, because obviously, but I would have thought honestly that they would have used like a mixture of real live animals or CGI animals. But if you would have told me that this movie, if you hadn't told me that this movie was all CGI, I would have just thought this was like a National Geographic film. It was that beautiful. The cinematography is absolutely breathtaking and gorgeous, and moments in this film are just gut wrenching and just spine tingling. An amazing film by Jon Favreau, and a great and welcome addition to the live action remakes, because a lot of these, and here's my quarrel with live action remakes. For example, Maleficent. Maleficent was one of those I really disliked for this reason. It took the source material that it came from and basically said, you know, that classic, forget that, because all of that is garbage. Here's the new thing. I hate that. If you're going to do a live action adaptation of a beloved animated classic, like Sleeping Beauty, like Jungle Book, like Cinderella, you need to make it so that it respects the source material and expands on the source material. One of the better of the films that does this was Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella that came out last year. I love that movie. I gave it I did a written review for it, and I gave it just really good reviews because it was good. Now there were scenes that, this was the better of the two. And this was probably the best of the live action adaptations I've seen. And if honestly, if it's going to keep getting higher on the scale, because I think Maleficent was first, that was terrible, then Cinderella was next, that was better, and this just blew all of them out of the water. If Beauty and the Beast is anywhere near as good as Jungle Book in terms of storytelling and what they're able to accomplish, sign me up, because it's definitely getting better. The quality is definitely getting better, and just pay homage to your source material. Don't throw it away for the sake of a cash grab and just say, oh, look, we're doing something new, because you're doing a disservice to a real classic, and in the process are really, really ruining yourself. But I want to know what you guys thought. I saw it in IMAX 3D, so I don't know about the other people that didn't see it. I didn't see the previews, so I can't speak intelligently on what was shown during the previews because I was kind of running in there. I made it in time. I watched the whole movie. I didn't have any problem there, but I just didn't see any of the previews. But honestly, if I want to know what y'all thought, just let me know. Comment, subscribe, like, and share all that nonsense, all that doohickey. And as always, this has been Movie Critic Rob with the Movie Channel, and I'm signing off.